Welcome back to Pixel Project Radio, the video game discussion and analysis podcast. My name is Rick, and today begins our analysis of Final Fantasy Tactics, War of the Lions. If you don't like it, blame yourself or God. I have to thank the patrons up top, as always. The patrons make it possible to continue this show. And if you would like to be like these fine folks, you can head on over to patreon.com/pixelprojectradio, see what we've got over there, and it's a nice way to say thank you. More about that later. First, I want to introduce our guests for this episode, two Final Fantasy Tactics veterans who are Sherpa-ing me through my first time in the game, not to get ahead of ourselves. First, we have got returning guest, although it's been a minute. We've got Chris from A Novel Console. Chris, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you for having me back. I love being on this show, and I'm excited to talk Final Fantasy Tactics. It's been too long since I've mentioned that game's name.
Absolutely. I appreciate you being on, and I appreciate your expertise in this. Joining Chris is Nomad, on the show slightly more recently than Chris. Nomad, how's it going?
It is going fantastic. It's always great to be back, Rick. And Chris, it's a pleasure to meet you for the first time as well. And we're picking one hell of a game to talk through today. Final Fantasy Tactics. I haven't played it since it originally came out on the original PlayStation. So this was a fantastic journey. Cannot wait to get into this.
Absolutely. Hear, hear. I should say Nomad's podcast is The Retro Wildlands. Forgot to mention that just now. A Novel Console, The Retro Wildlands, Chris and Nomad, respectively. Before we dive in, let's talk about what this podcast is. We might have some new listeners, being that this is coming out in a timely manner right after the remaster is released. This podcast, Pixel Project Radio, is focused on analyzing games top to bottom. We're going to start by giving an overview of the game, going into general thoughts on art style, music, mechanics, things of that nature. Then we will get into a beat-by-beat analysis of the story. Now, this story will not be spoiled for you before story events happen. Nothing in Chapter 3 will be spoiled in Chapter 2 or 1. 4 won't be spoiled in 3, 2, or 1. It's sequential in that way. So if you want to jump off before an episode spoils something for you or gets to a point where you're not at yet, you can certainly do so. The plan at the time of recording Episode 1 is a total of 4 episodes, which, as always, I'm eternally grateful these fine fellows have agreed to. That's the plan. If anything changes, we'll try and let you know as the series goes on. But enough about that. Let's talk personal histories. I already kind of spoiled my personal history. I'm playing this for the first time. The War of the Lions version, specifically emulated on PPSSPP with the slowdown patch in there on my GPD Win 4. I think that's everything I have to say about it for now. What about you two? Chris, I actually want to start with you if that's cool, because you are playing the PS1 version. What's your history with this game?
Before I do that, I want to ask you, what does the slowdown patch do?
Oh, sure. So the PSP version, it's funny. They made things like, they adjusted the visuals such that 60 FPS was a priority. However, in the PSP version, when you cast magic spells, the frame rate tanks, and it's like half as slow, or half as fast, I should say, twice as slow, and it bothers a lot of people. So the patch kind of patches that out so everything runs smoothly.
I see. You know, that's the same issue that the PS1 game has. I think just overall, Magic and Summons just tanks the frame rate for some reason. Hopefully they fix that in the re-release. But anyways, I got this game when I was a kid. I had a PlayStation 1 pretty late into the cycle. I think the PlayStation 2 might have been out already. And I got this game and Digimon World 3 together. Yeah. I remember my mom took me to Sears, and for some reason she bought me both games at Sears.
Oh, Sears. Haven't heard that name in a minute.
Right? It's crazy. Can you believe Sears used to sell video games? I remember not understanding the game at all. Like, none of it clicked. None of it worked for me. Because I didn't know that you had to press circle to accept. Usually you just pressed X and that would take you through. But this game kept a lot of the original Japanese design where circle means accept and X means no. And I couldn't even get out of the first battle during the training because of that. But eventually I started figuring it out slowly. I learned the mechanics of the game, how to move my units, how to strategize, how to get better equipment, because I didn't really even understand the job and job point system, because at that point I didn't really know much English.
I was going to ask that. I'm glad that you brought that up. You had mentioned back in the Link's Awakening episode when you wrote in for community correspondence that you played through that game without knowing much, and that sounds like so difficult to me. That's incredible, man, that you were able to do that.
I got far enough without being able to really understand what was going on with the story and anything. Eventually, a few months later, my parents decided to get me a Game Genie, and I set it up, turned on Infinite Health, and went through the rest of the game, and I had an amazing time, even though I didn't understand anything story-wise in the game. Then War of the Lions came out. I put a lot of time into that. I got to a fight that I don't think either of us have gone to at this point in our playthrough. That is completely absurd how they expect you to win that fight, and I dropped the game afterwards. And I think I played it for my show, and I got to the same fight, and I dropped it again. So, but the game is just, it holds so many memories for me, and it's so good. I remember just going to my uncle's house, taking my PlayStation 1. Everybody wanted to play Crash Team Racing or something, and I just wanted to play Final Fantasy Tactics.
Heck yeah. Very nice. I'm glad that I have both of you on here with since both of you have such fond memories of the game. I take no joy in bringing folks on and bashing on a game, although, Nomad, you and I think we had a productive and good time with Detroit Become Human.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I think that was a terrific series. But the one I have the most joy on this show is just talking about why we love the games that we've played. So I'm thankful both of you are here. And speaking of Nomad, I want to hear what you have to say about your history with this game. You are a PSP fanatic, so I thought to ask you, and you happened to say that this game means a lot to you as well.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of games in my life that are tied to really fond memories, but this one has a real specific memory. Now, talking about the PSP, it's turned into one of my favorite systems. I collect for it. I can't see it, but off to my right, I've got 2 shelves full of PSP physical games, and Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions has been over there for a while. The thing about it, though, is even though I'm playing it now on the PSP for the first time and experiencing the game that way, my introduction to the game was kind of like Chris, way back in the beginning when the game was first launched. But it's funny how I ended up getting my hands on it. So my Final Fantasy adventure started with Final Fantasy VII, and after I had completed that game and just beaten it into the ground with doing as much as I could, I was very hungry for more. And I don't remember how it actually started, but I ended up becoming very good friends with the kid that lived across the street from me from where I was living. His name was David. David, I don't think you're going to listen to this, but hey, buddy, if you happen to be.
Shout out to David.
Absolutely. But him and I became fast friends, and I didn't know he was a gamer or that he even had a PlayStation until like maybe several months after him and I would go over each other's house and just play around or whatever. But he mentioned to me at one point that he was playing Final Fantasy Tactics, and at that point I had not even heard of Tactics. I knew nothing of it, didn't know it was a thing. So we'd go in his house, and over the course of several weeks, weekend sleepovers, that kind of thing, he would play this game, and I would just watch him, just fascinated. This whole world of this top-down sort of strategy type of game was very new to me, and I wanted more of it. So there was a point where he finally finished the game, and he allowed me to borrow it. And I actually had the game in my possession for several months before I finally had to give it back to him. But during that time, I played the game a lot, and I didn't really fully appreciate the story. I think I was too young to really process a lot of the finer themes, but I really resonated with the characters. I liked the whole overarching narrative for what it was, but it was really the gameplay that really sucked me in. I played it beyond completion, finished the final secret dungeon that we may or may not talk about. I knew where all the secret characters were. It was an amazing experience, but once I really finished it and I gave the game back, I never touched it again. Not until you reached out to me, Rick, and said that this is something we're gonna do, you, Chris, and I. So it's been fun going back and playing this game again and really diving into it from an adult set of eyes. The story is very, very engaging. I really have a better appreciation for the music now, and there's just we always come up with games that we feel are just really, really nostalgic for a lot of different reasons, but this one has really lit a fire in me, and I could go on, so I'm going to stop.
Yeah, it's such a special thing to be able to re-examine something that meant so much to you as a child and come away with a new appreciation. Not something that replaces the old, but coincides alongside of it, sort of symbiotically. It's a really special thing, and I'm thrilled that you're going to hopefully both experience that here. Okay, before we get into the development, as I wrote erroneously in my notes, let's do a little bit of the community forum. If you are new to the show, the community forum is a channel in our Discord server, technically a forum, where I post what we're talking about, and folks can chime in if they want their responses read on the show. And I'm going to read 2 right now, and I'm going to save 1 for when we talk about the mechanics. So Jam, Discord regular, says the following. My favorite part is when Wiegraf said, "A concept is a brick. It can be used to build a courthouse of reason, or it can be thrown through the window." I have no idea if Jam is pulling my leg or not. If it's in the game, it's definitely in the PS1 localization. Chris, does that sound familiar?
I think it might be one of those Final Fantasy meme generators where people say stuff like the pen is mightier than the sword, and it's Wiegraf just impaling somebody. Oh. It could be. It could not be.
He's having a laugh at my expense, huh? Ooh, so-and-so. That's all right. Speaking of Wiegraf, we've got a response from Dave Jackson from Tales from the Backlog. Here's what Dave has to say. I got soft-locked at the part where everyone gets soft-locked, and the game has a few massive difficulty spikes out of nowhere, but I still like Final Fantasy Tactics a lot. The legendary localization, I'm adding in parentheses, War of the Lions, the deep and engaging job system, and underrated music really make this a memorable game. It's the second time music has been mentioned between Dave and Nomad, and believe me, we are going to get there and talk about it. But I haven't got to that legendarily difficult battle just yet. Is that what you were referencing earlier, Chris?
No, it's way further in the game. I'm not even at that point yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd actually thought, I'm trying to think, there's a battle inside a castle where you're fighting Wiegraf one-on-one with Ramza. And in that battle, Wiegraf is very, I wouldn't call him overpowered, but he is very powerful. And it is to a point where if you're not leveled up enough, or you don't have the right skills, or you're just not prepared for this fight, what makes this a soft lock situation is at certain points, the game will stop and ask you, hey, do you want to save your progress? And 9 times out of 10, you just kind of do it out of habit. But this particular ask of do you want to save this game is right before this battle. And if you cannot win this fight, you cannot reload a previous save unless you've made multiple saves, which is something I never did. So that'll get you soft locked there. That almost happened to me when I was a kid, but just sheer tenacity got me out of that situation. I almost gave up, but I found a way through it. It was brutal.
That is a good point to bring up. Multiple saves and, if applicable, save states is the way to go. I'm rolling with, at any given time, 5 save states and 4 save files, so like I'm golden. I have been doing this even to this day on PC, PS5, Switch. I have multiple save files after, and I know I've told this story before, after several corrupted saves on Final Fantasy IX, and that one time the PlayStation Underground Holiday Demo Disc had a bug on it that wiped your memory card if you played it. Specifically, I think if you played Beautiful Joe 2's demo. Or maybe it was a GTA thing. I don't remember. But it happened to me. So we still got one more community forum left. We'll save that for when we talk mechanics. But first, let's do development. So let's talk a little bit about the development. This series is going to be focused on War of the Lions, but development, it makes sense to talk a little bit about the PS1 version, obviously. So this was released in June of 97 in Japan. It came over to the North Americas in January of the following year. World of the Lions, which is actually War of the Lions, May of 07. And then, of course, the remake just happened, September 25th. That will be out in next week's recording. We'll talk a little bit about it. Developed by Toes and Square, published by Square Enix, directed by the Yasumi Matsuno of Tactics Ogre, Vagrant Story, Final Fantasy XII, and, well, Tactics fame. He also wrote the script. Produced by none other than Sakaguchi the Gooch, art by Hiroshi Minigawa and Akihiko Yoshida. Oh, and one more, Hideo Minaba. Composer, Hitoshi Sakimoto, who has done lots. The Ogre series, Final Fantasy XII, Odin Sphere, 13 Sentinels, which I really like that soundtrack, many more, as well as Masaharu Iwata, somehow even more credits. Tactics Ogre, Bloody Roar 2, Shadow Hearts, we'd be here forever if we kept going. We're going to talk about the music a little bit later. So, let's discuss this, you fellas. Best way to play this in 2025. What are we thinking? I think there's a clear answer, but I want to kick it to you two.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been playing the game on my PSP, the PlayStation Portable, and I was lucky enough as a kid to play it on the original PlayStation. If I had to pick between the two, I like the PlayStation Portable. However, it comes with a huge caveat, which is that the animations and the spell effects and things are very noticeably slow. Now, there's patches that you can install if you are savvy enough, and you can circumvent that issue, or I'm pretty sure the mobile version of the game doesn't have any of those slowdown issues if you want to go mobile, but I really, really like the PSP. It really has more of an authentic feel to me, and I just like being able to shut my system down whenever I need to if I'm in the middle of a battle or something like that. It just feels better to me.
Not to leave Chris in the lurch, but since you mentioned it, the patched version of the PSP, I think that's the way to go. You throw that on an emulator or even a laptop, get that patch in. It's going to be the PSP version. You get it running smooth. It's all good to go. I personally am not a big mobile gamer. If you're not using emulation, the mobile version is the way to go, like objectively. I just hate playing on phones, which is a shame because like phones today are so powerful. And I've got one of those folding doodads, so like I got a big screen. It would be great. I don't know. I hate playing on a phone. I don't like it. Chris. Yeah, sorry. We kind of left you in the lurch there with naming all of them.
No, you're good. You're good. Okay. Personally, I don't think that some PlayStation 1 games aged well with for adults. Not that they're terrible games or they're bad, but like if you're an adult, you have a full-time job, you have a family, you have other responsibilities. I don't think some PlayStation 1 games age very well difficulty-wise, and Final Fantasy Tactics is one of those games, but it does have a great story, great gameplay, and everything. So personally, for me, I think the best way to play this is the PlayStation 1 version on an emulator with cheats turned on so that the whole experience is a whole lot smoother. And honestly, the only thing you're missing by playing with cheats is the difficulty. Like you're not going to experience getting your entire team completely obliterated and just scraping by the hair of your teeth because you got lucky on that last hit that you threw. But I personally think that cheats, the PS1 version with cheats are the way to go.
Interesting.
I am playing it on the Steam Deck, and whenever a fight gets on my nerves, I just turn on the cheats, get through it, turn them off, and continue on.
I don't go that far, but I do. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I abuse save states right now.
Right? I mean, if you got them and the only person that you're affecting is yourself and you're fine with it, then who cares?
True enough. I think no matter how you play it, this is a game that should be played, though. I'm having a great time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sakaguchi, I found this interview on Shmuplations, excuse me. Sakaguchi talking a little bit about this. He said, the title Final Fantasy Tactics was actually something I thought up 4 years ago, which at the time would have been 1993. We even took out a trademark on the name. I'm a strategy game fan myself, and I had been thinking about what Final Fantasy would look like as a strategy game. I'm the type of person who comes up with a name first, so nothing much else had been concretely set down. Unfortunately, I was caught up in the development of the main Final Fantasy series, which were coming out at a quick pace, one every 12 to 18 months. Good Lord. So my plans for Tactics remained unrealized. And it was Matsuno who got all excited, said, please let me do it whenever he got there. And he actually took the critiques of Tactics Ogre into Final Fantasy Tactics, kind of learned from that. And then he did the same with Vagrant Story, learned from the critiques of Tactics into that one. That's a game that really intimidates me, like just seeing how it works. I don't know. I want to play it. I'm just,
it seems pretty daunting.
I will say I was fortunate enough to play Vagrant Story a lot. I'll keep this very brief. The systems are very involved. There's a lot of numbers. It's a big numbers game, but it was one of the games that I had the most fun with as a kid, but probably more so because I had so much time to really mess with the systems.
Yeah, back to what Chris said.
Oh, big time. But I'd be curious what either of you would think about the story, since we'll be talking about the story here in Tactics. I see some parallels. So Vagrant Story, I don't think sleep on it, but I don't know if it's aged all that well, but that's another day.
Interesting.
Ito, the father of the ATB system, the man himself, said this: I have actually never liked strategy and simulation games. I find all the work you have to do with units, equipping them, switching weapons to be so tedious and annoying that midway through, I always put the controller down and walk away. I feel that, man. I don't like thinking either. He goes on, my goal for Tactics was to make a game that I wouldn't feel like walking away from. I also wanted a game where the strategy would feel exciting and urgent. I agree.
That makes me wonder what strategy games he was playing that he would just get to the point where, like, I hate this, I'm leaving. Because Tactics can get to that point.
Yeah, it's a lot of menu fiddling outside of battles. Maybe that's the saving grace. Like, you don't have to do a lot once you're in the battle. It's not dissimilar from Final Fantasy XII in that way, I guess. Here, Matsuno talks a little bit about writing the story. He wanted to make a kind of morality tale adventure story. The themes he included in the games often reflect people and the situations. I'm reading a quote from the Shmuplations article. The themes he has included in his games, often reflect the people and the situations Matsuno was working in during development. A major theme in Tactics is the class-based society of nobles and commoners. This came about when Matsuno joined Square and discovered that some individuals there, quote, were like royalty and had amassed abundant social capital. Experiencing this made Matsuno doubt whether someone without, quote, those gifts could succeed at Square. That is so fascinating to me. It's not all that surprising, though, like from what a lot of us have heard of the Japanese work culture, especially in the 80s, early 90s, in the video game scene, too. I'm kind of not surprised to hear that.
No, nor am I. And at first, I had thought maybe this grand idea came from something, I don't know, a little bit more grander, not something internal at the place of your employment. But you're 100% right. I think just that sort of culture lends itself to this way of thinking, and that's absolutely fascinating. I had no idea.
That's such a strange concept to me. But then again, I'm just a millennial that doesn't respect any sort of work culture.
Yeah, down with the man. I mean, I don't know, man. We kind of see this in today's workforce, too. I'm sure we've all had a job that felt like that, where some employees got preferential treatment, not because of their skills, but, you know, maybe seniority or who they knew.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe some more lurid relationships, you know? We see it all the time. It's just a part of the, you know, capitalistic society, I suppose.
I can't tell you how many jobs I've had where people would get preferential treatment over how long they've been there. If you would put, let's say, you want a Christmas time off in July and somebody who had been there longer requested it the week before, they would cancel yours and give it to the person that had been there for the longest. Man. So, yeah, that's...
It's
a thing.
Stinks.
Yeah, all I'll say is I've converted a few of my coworkers into listeners of Pixel Project Radio, and all I'll say is my work is fantastic. Everything's great. Wink, wink, I'm in trouble.
Nomad is a model employee.
Oh, yes.
Here is, I just Venmo'd you that $50 that I paid for you to say that, so I appreciate you. You know what my best piece of work advice is? And I tell this to anybody, especially younger kids who ask it. Best piece of advice, do your work well and do it timely, because that gives you the best chance to slack off. No better feeling than slacking off at work. You just do your stuff, do it well, get it done, and then you slack off, and it's great.
You know, I had an interview for the job before the contract that I'm on right now, and during the interview, the guy that was going to be my manager asked me something, and I said, well, the way that I look at stuff is that I'm so lazy that I do things right once the first time so that it's done and I never have to look at it ever again. And I think that's what got me the job.
That's one of those roll of the dice interview answers, because like there is some merit to that. You know, I forget where I was reading this, but there are some folks that genuinely say they think the best workers are the lazy ones for exactly the reason that you said. You don't want to do extra work, so you get so good that you only have to do it once, do it efficiently, and then you're done, you know? I love that. Work culture is crazy, man. It's a tough world we're living in. War of the Lions, not World of the Lions, was handled by Takamasa Shiba and Shingo Kosuge, who were big fans of the PS version. They also worked at Square, so don't go thinking that your love of games will get you a job. Don't go thinking you're going to get a job. Keep your expectations low. Some additions to the World of the Lions. Oh my gosh, is this going to be a theme? Some additions to the War of the Lions, the Dark Knight and the Onion Knight classes, which I'm hoping to get one of those. Animated cutscenes, of course. Multiplayer segments, which, by the way, they're optional. You know, it's 2025. Not a lot of people on PSP these days, except for Nomad. We're not going to cover the multiplayer stuff. Sorry. And of course, the script overhaul, which we'll talk about at length. This was done by Joseph Reeder, assisted by Tom Slattery. Pronunciation can only go up from here, guys. Don't worry. And now, let's talk visuals a little bit. I am a huge fan of the visuals in this game. It's diorama-esque, and that was part of the plan, you know, especially if you look at the older Final Fantasies that Sakaguchi was working on, especially, you know, 1 through 6. 6 and 5, and I guess 4, but 6 especially to me stands out. Even Fantasian, where they built literal dioramas to plot the game. This diorama style is very Sakaguchi, and I, for one, love it. It makes me think of theater. It makes it feel like a theater production, which is what made the old Final Fantasies and Final Fantasy IX so special to me. What do you two think about this?
I really enjoyed the visual presentation. I still do now, but it's interesting. When I was younger and playing this game for the first time, I didn't look at it so much as a diorama per se. I really looked at it like we were playing with our toys, our action figures.
Action figures, please.
Exactly. They're not dolls, people. They're action figures. But I played with a lot when I was a kid, G.I. Joes, that whole thing. So when you're moving your units around in this little setup of an area, and this isn't even just true for the battles, the entire world is presented this way. It just felt like I was playing with my toys. And I don't mean that to take away from the experience in any way. It to me, it kind of amplifies it a little bit. Like I had so much control, investment over what it was that I was seeing, but it was, again, something I've never seen before at the time, and it was so unique and it stuck with me. And even today, the visual presentation looks fantastic, and the way you utilize it when you're in battle and you turn that diorama around to get a better view to see the battlefield, it just feels very fluid and it fits.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, how about you?
I have no way to describe how much I love the way this game looks. Like you said, it looks like a diorama filled with like little Lego minifigs that are sprites. And everything else, all of the pixels or whatever you want to call them, moving in the background, you know, when you have grass flowing in the wind or you have water rushing by or snow falling, it all looks so good. I love how Square is now bringing back the HD 2D and it looks amazing, but I don't think it will ever get to the point where it'll look as amazing as Final Fantasy Tactics. And I've seen a couple of other games from around the era that kind of look like Final Fantasy Tactics does, where they have the 3D environment with semi-realistic textures placed on them, and they always make me feel like I need to play Final Fantasy Tactics because it just does it so well. And even when you're playing and you're using, let's say, a summon or magic or something, it just looks like somebody took a picture and just put it there with clip arts and then takes it off for the special effect. It's still, to me, it just looks so amazing. And I don't know if it's nostalgia or if it's because it really does look that great.
There's something to be said, like the visual designers back then were working with what they had. And of course, Final Fantasy Tactics, it came out after Final Fantasy VII, which is a big part of its sales numbers. 7 sold like gangbusters. Tactics sold not even close to it. And of course, it's sandwiched between 7 and 8. It was sitting in a precarious and inauspicious position. But they were used to back then, more so than today, with working with these pixel graphics, specifically on CRT televisions. Whereas today, I don't know, it sounds a little hand-wavy to say it this way, but it's almost like you can tell it's an imitation, a facsimile of the quote-unquote pure pixel days. You know what I mean? Do I sound insane by saying this?
No, I think... I don't know if it has to do with the development tools that they use nowadays compared to what they had to use back then, that they can't get to that. But I know what you're saying. Like, yeah, it's different.
I think it being as different as it is definitely one of its strengths. Now, I feel like when I look at this sometimes, some of the feedback that I've heard secondhand is sometimes the visuals are almost a little too simplistic, not as flashy. The color palettes aren't as bright in some spots, but I still find myself marveling at the little things. Like we were talking about how little the characters look. And even though you can't really see their faces per se, the sprites themselves are very expressive for the time. And at no point did I ever question what a specific character was feeling. They had the dialogue on screen, but then the sprite was kind of moving in time. Not super fast motion or anything like that, but you always kind of knew what they were expressing, and I always thought that was kind of a nice touch. But biggest thing for me is the spell effects and even the summons that you throw into battle too. Like it's all PS1 era hardware, but it always looked so flashy to me, even if it is kind of simplistic in a sense. So yeah, it's a unique style all its own, and I almost feel like it did the 2D/3D art style out first before it became a modern thing.
I'm glad you mentioned sprite expression. I do love that the sprites on the battlefield, they're just little guys. You see their eyes. You don't really see their nose or mouths. Little blocky dudes. One of you said Legos. That's pretty apropos. But there are so many bespoke animations in this game of a character smacking somebody's arm away, of a character standing as their hair flutters in the wind, of a character throwing rocks at the ocean. So many little one-offs that never come up again, but are placed just so. It just elevates the scene in a way that I don't see a lot in games of this era. And I mean, Final Fantasy VII, we already mentioned it. It has a bit of an advantage being 3D polygonal, but even some of those, you see a lot of reused, like I'm thinking of Squall. I'm thinking of Cloud, like shrugging. I'm thinking of him, shaking his head. You see those constantly, but here, you see these animations once and that's it. They just serve the scene and it's beautiful. It makes it feel like a little diorama play, a little theater play. They nailed it with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. The repeated motions you see like in Final Fantasy VII. Now that I really truly think about it, I can't think of hardly any animations that were ever really reused. So yeah, good call.
You mentioned that, yeah, there's like one-off animations, and one that I immediately thought about, I don't know if you've gotten to that point, but there's a scene where one of Ramsa's brothers pours himself some wine. And that's the only time where you see that animation. Yeah. You're never going to see that again in the entire game. It's great.
Yep. There are so many. One thing that I'm not sure how I feel about are the cutscenes. In The War of the Lions, they added animated cutscenes, and I've got a terrific response from an art teacher that I want to get to in a second. But the PS1 version always uses the in-game diorama-esque figures. No cutscenes whatsoever. Or at least I don't think so. Chris, can you confirm that?
PS1, the only cutscene you see is the opening one.
Okay.
And then after that, I don't remember if there's one at the end of the game, but other than that, yeah, that's the only one. The rest is in-game.
Yeah. In-game throughout the story, it's just that War of the Lions adds several animated cutscenes. Now, don't get me wrong. They're animated pretty well. In fact, I reached out to friend of the show, Phil, from Deleted Saves. Phil is an art teacher. Phil was on Silent Hill 1 and more recently, and one of my favorite episodes we've done, The Bouncer.
The Bouncer!
And there's an effect that's done in the animation here. It's also in Metaphor. It's also in Valkyria Chronicles. And I don't know how to talk about it. So I reached out to Phil and asked him, and I want to read his response here. It's a little bit longer, but Phil is, as I said, an art teacher. He's an expert. So I want to give him his due. Here's what Phil says. First of all, he says, "Wow, there's a mix of techniques to make this work. I'm very impressed. I think this is a transparency layer placed over the primary animation that also appears to have an animated effect, something one could do in a program like After Effects. There looks to be a lot of hatching and cross-hatching that was animated on the cloaks and coats. That must have been a pain to do, but it is effective. Possibly also a thaumatrope, or a type of roto-animation, or possibly a mild form of shadow automatism. I think any one of those would work, but it's primarily a transparency layer." First of all, incredible response. What this is, I'll try and speak about it in layman's terms. It looks like there is a layer of color and sketching, like almost like a colored pencil sketching that, they took 6 frames of, and it's just layered at 12 FPS. And that layer is underneath of their coats. So when they move to the left, that layer underneath doesn't necessarily move with them. I hope I'm explaining that right, but it produces this beautifully animated effect that looks like you're watching one of those flip books just at hyper speed. It looks so beautiful, and I love that. I loved it in Valkyria Chronicles. You see it a bit in Metaphor. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, that was like a huge thing reviewers were talking about when War of the Lions came out on PSP. How the cutscenes, because they were new, were such an impressively visual, because of the techniques that they use for animating them.
It looks fantastic. That cell shaded sort of look to it, that flipbook kind of look like you described, Rick, is very well done. For me, my biggest takeaway, even going beyond the visuals, those scenes really added much more of an emotional weight to some of the more profound scenes in the game too, much more than I felt the original PlayStation did. I think both of them do it well. Even leaving the cutscenes alone and just doing it all real time was fine enough, but everything with the new animations just added even more layers of goodness on top of this cake. It was great.
Yeah. Now, I will say, these cutscenes are terrific, and voice acted, by the way. However, there is a part of me that really likes how it's done in-engine. So everything is that diorama set play. Part of me really likes that. And, I might change my tune depending on when you ask me. I like the cutscenes, I like the in-engine. But there's just something so, of course it's consistent, but there's just something so pleasant. And I've already used bespoke, but adorable maybe, I don't know, about seeing everything in this little set piece, little Lego guy, in all of these various locales and quote unquote boards. They really do look like boards. I don't know. Part of me strongly prefers the PS1 version. If I could, my ideal scenario would be to play the PS1 version with the War of the Lions script patched in. That would be perfectly ideal for me.
I think I could absolutely get behind that too. Again, these improvements are really good, but I do go back and think about that very original experience, that seamless sort of, no transition really. I like keeping that sort of, you're looking at the whole play uninterrupted, and it's just very free flowy. So I could get behind that.
Before we move on to mechanics, which is a meaty section, I did want to mention a thought that I had. There's an interesting dichotomy between the innocent, almost toy-like appearance of the character portraits alongside of the mature storyline. This is a more subtle script than other Final Fantasies, dealing with political maneuverings until it goes JRPG, which, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it. But it's a more mature storyline, to be sure, and put alongside of the character portraits where, like, honestly, if you covered up everybody's facial hair and regular hair, there are like 3 different faces throughout the whole game. It's like Dragon Ball Z style. You take off Goku's hair and put on Vegeta's, you'd think it's him. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's funny.
You know, you're going to find it even weirder when you get to the end and you find out what the last boss is supposed to be, and you're going to be like, what? This... it's really jarring.
All right, let's talk mechanics. This is a big deal, and I want to read the last bit of community correspondence from first-time writer Gray Swandeer. Gray Swandeer? Gray Swander? I don't know. Here's what they have to say. They start by saying the story is what brings them back again and again. Revenge, birth determines what you are, class. But they go on to say, the gameplay is what keeps me hooked. It's so satisfying to win a fight, whether it's by the skin of your teeth or by obliterating your enemies as a monk dual-wielding fists. It's not the deepest strategy game-wise, but it's not the deepest game strategy-wise, but it's fun and challenging and extremely fun to look at. And I gotta read this last part. And finally, just 2 words. Agrius motherfucking Oaks. Agrius, my beloved. I love a paladin. I love a cute paladin.
Oh, amen to that. If I were to have a crush on any sort of sprite-like character when I was a kid, she was it.
See, I came in with Final Fantasy IX, so Beatrix was like, oh man, she's awesome.
There you go. There you go.
All right, fellas, where do we even begin? This is a legendary tactics system. I don't know. I think Gray Swandeer is kind of downplaying it a little bit. I think it's a fairly complex system. Not the most complex, but once you start adding in the classes, the terrain, the Zodiac system, things start to coalesce in a way that's sometimes hard to keep track of everything. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Let's talk about what this basically is. It's grid-based. Everything is in squares. Everything looks like a board. You know, a lot of the times you hear older gamers say board from like the Atari days, B-O-A-R-D. This is very much that, a grid-based board with different terrains. It's a tactics game. There's a turn order, and on each turn, characters can perform a few actions. They can move a certain number of squares based on their movement stat, with the note that terrain and verticality will affect this. You can do a standard attack. You can do a magic attack. You can do a special ability. You can use an item, or you can simply wait. Now, something that you two turned me on to and that I learned very quickly is that this game sort of trains you to always take an action. This doesn't work like normal Final Fantasy games. This isn't your Pop's Final Fantasy. You only gain EXP and job points when you take actions. In other words, anytime you take an action in-game, with the exception of movement, by the way, movement doesn't count, or waiting. Waiting doesn't count either. So when you attack, use an item, special ability, whatever, as long as it hits and connects and does what it's intended to do, you will gain job points and you will gain experience points. That's how you level up your guys. This is why a lot of folks will say to attack your own guys if it isn't a risk, so you can farm this stuff. Potions, when you lost only 1 HP, drink that shit. Role-playing that your mage slept with the squire's girlfriend, pelt a rock at that sumbitch. As long as you're doing some sort of action and, importantly, the action connects, using a potion when you have no HP to heal won't do anything, you will gain job points. And I thank you both for turning me on to that.
We constantly made the joke, or at least I feel like I did a lot when the 3 of us were talking before we got together, but the running joke is throw stones, literally, at your own units to try to level them up faster. And it's comical, and I almost don't know how I really feel about it now that I'm an adult playing this game, but you're 100% right, though. As long as you're training yourself to take some sort of an action, that's your quickest, surest way to continue to level your party up. And it's funny to me how there were times when I was younger, I would play a battle and I would kill everything and mortally wound something, and then I would just take my characters and just have them walk around the field throwing stones and potions at each other until I got bored. And that really helped me get a leg up in the battles. Now, is that the way the game is meant to be played? I'd like to think no, but it's there, and it's really, really fun.
Yeah, I wonder if the developers thought that people were going to exploit that to unlock certain jobs really early in the game.
I almost think they must have, right? Like, when I think back to when you do random battles, which will happen as you traverse the map, you may go over a location and then enter a battle. There's times where if you're really dialed in and you're really taking it to the enemy and you're just taking them out quickly, you're not leveling up quickly at all. The job points that you grab are negligible, and maybe you're going to find some gil at the end of the battle, and that's really it. To really make the most of your time, hit your friend with a rock.
See, you guys both mentioned throwing stones. I did something a little more insidious. I would take out all... This sounds so sadistic. I would take out all of the enemies except for one. I'm thinking of like the Cthulhu-looking mage I did this to. And I would get my guys to get them onto a bridge or in a corner, and I would make it such that they couldn't move, the enemy. And I would beat the crap out of them until they were almost dead. Then I'd give them a potion, and I'd just keep going. I felt like a school bully, just kicking them, lifting them up, kicking them. And then meanwhile, my guys in the back are just casting nonstop, like not chant, but rush on themselves, so they get like or not rush, whatever it is, to give them +1 attack. Oh man, it's so silly. But you want to do that because job points and experience points will make your character stronger. Job points in particular feed into the job system. Oh man, I love this system so much. I love a system with jobs. Final Fantasy X-2, forever my favorite battle system, although this comes dangerously close. I love this job system.
Wow. You know, this, I'm surprised at the turn you've taken, because at first when you started playing, you were like, this game is impossible. I'm not having fun. I hate it.
Mad.
Please don't feel like you have to beat the entire game. And now you're like, I love this more than Final Fantasy X too.
Not more than. And you are right. I was so pissed. This game does have a difficulty curve, and we'll get into it once we get into the story. I don't know. I think it's a little steep. I played Three Houses. That's really my only tactics game I've played, but I don't know. We'll get to it.
Oh, Rick, you have a whole world in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
I know, man. I know.
Yeah, the job system is fantastic in this game, and it's arguably one of, if not the biggest draws for players that are coming into it, and even returning players. This is the thing that keeps me coming back. May I explain the job system? I am stoked.
Yeah, by all means.
So, when you first start out the game, your characters just have your standard issue job classes, your squire, your chemist who can use items, your archer, your knight. Very basic, if you will.
Just squire and chemist at first.
But as you play the game and you get these job points, they're kind of like experience points for those jobs. And I think the maximum level you can get for a job is level 8. But as you get more levels for those jobs, other jobs will open up. A thief class, a ninja, a samurai. And it's not just that you're opening different jobs and changing into those different jobs. The meat of this experience is when you play as a job, you have that job's like primary set of skills. Like example, if you're a thief, you can, as long as you've learned the skills, you can steal equipment from your enemies or steal gil or whatever you want. But then you have the ability to set a secondary skill set. Basically, take the skills from another job and attach them to your character. So you can create some awesome combinations, such as a white mage that does black magic, a knight that can steal, a chemist that can charge their attacks like an archer. The possibilities are nigh endless, and this is the hook right here.
That is the special sauce. Absolutely. That gives you so much customization. There's already a lot of customization with all of the team builds you can do. People do challenge runs of all orators. I don't know why I said that weird. Orators, all whatever. All monks, I would imagine, would be a pretty short playthrough because monk is kind of broken. But it's incredible. I wanted to ask, do you, either of you, maybe I'll toss it to you first, Chris, do either of you have favorite jobs in this game?
I am going to be a little bit biased because the first time I played this when I was a kid, I ran a party of only knights, and probably that's why I was having such a hard time. But I like the way they look. I like that they hit hard. And I like that their skills are basically, I can break all of your equipment and leave you basically defenseless if you upgrade their attacks, no, their abilities. Now, I was going to ask you, Nomad, do you know if stats transfer over between jobs? Because I have a thief that was broken movement wise. Like it could move over any kind of terrain, and I think I changed them to a dragoon or a geomancer, and the movement is still completely broken. And all I did, I probably did like +2 movement, because I think the thief gives you +2 movement. But I got everybody with +2 movement, and that's like the only one that's like insanely broken movement wise.
I gotcha. The only thing that I think I noticed, and I meant to validate this before we got together here, so I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, I trust those listening to jump into the pixelprojectradio Discord and school me.
All right.
My understanding is at least like the basery stats, like attack and stuff like that, which I don't think there's a whole lot of that here. If you level up in a specific job, like say a knight, which is a little bit more predisposed to strength attack, I think you'll get a little bit more of a stat boost when you level up as a knight, and that in and of itself transfers or stays on the character. And then when they change job classes to say a thief, the quicker, that kind of thing, they'll start leveling up their speed. I think it is a little quicker in there. That kind of transfers over. That much I'm pretty sure exists. That's about the extent I know.
So that explains why my white mage was doing 60 damage with a basic staff.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yep.
White mage has so much rage that they became a paladin by accident. Yeah, that's what I was seeing too. Like thieves will give you extra speed, knight strength, etc. like that. It's a really in-depth system that's so customizable. Like you could come to this game for nothing more than the battles and still have a good time. I mean, you shouldn't ignore the story because it's quite good, but you could do so much here. You had mentioned movement +2, Chris. That brings us into the idea of the skills. Nomad, you had talked about the secondary skill. Everybody's got a first skill. You mentioned white mage with black magic. That's your first skill, primary skill, and secondary skill. You also have, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misremembering, you have 3 other categories. Or is it 2 other categories?
You've got 3.
You've got a special skill slot, you've got a passive skill slot, and then I think you have like the bottom one that gives you like movement-based buffs, like move +2, vertical +1, ignore terrain, things like that.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, I'll put it in edit if I'm misremembering. The movement stuff is pretty handy. You can get folks that can ignore verticality. Dragoon has an ability that can do that. Like you can just jump up walls. I mean, it doesn't affect you. Thieves, like you had said, Chris, move +2. That's really handy. But the real gem, the real pro strat is as soon as you get into the game, have all of your characters switch to Squire and immediately learn JP Boost. That is a skill that I never take off unless I'm on a tough battle. If I'm on a tough battle, I'll remove it and start adding other buffs like whatever. But JP Boost is going to give you more JP points. JP points are how you level up your jobs and get to stronger jobs, stronger abilities. That is what you want. That is what's going to make this game much easier. I have heard folks say that the difficulty drops off in a big way toward the second half of the game, toward the end, when you're so strong you're just steamrolling. I haven't got there yet. At the time of recording, I just made it to chapter 3. But I've heard that's the case. But JP Boost, and then, of course, switch to Chemist and get items, at the very least Potion and Phoenix Down. You do that, you're golden. You're going to have a much easier time throughout these first 2 chapters.
Oh, and throw item. Oh man, that's such a lifesaver. Have somebody with it being able to throw items.
Speaking of farming JP, farming EXP, and I'm curious to hear how you guys feel about this, enemies in this game will scale. I should say most enemies in this game will scale. Think back to Final Fantasy VIII. If you grind in Final Fantasy VIII, just as it is with tactics, the enemy monsters will become stronger with you. They scale up with you. The exception, and you two, please correct me if I'm wrong, the exception is most story battles. Almost all story battles do not scale. So if you're not grinding, or if you're grinding too much, let's say, story battle difficulty will fluctuate. Random battles, though, still might kick your butt, as they did me. Is that right?
Oh yeah, big time. Now, I go back and forth with how this feature goes. Like, yes, as you continue to level up, and what I usually do whenever I first start playing this game, I will make it a point to go into random battles and try to level up a little bit, because I know the story segments and the story battles, your enemies are going to be capped. So if you can get a couple levels above them, it's not going to make the battle super easy per se, but you're going to have a little bit better of a time. Now, I like going into random battles and having the enemies scale to me, because on one hand, the amount of experience your unit gets is dependent on the level of the unit that you're attacking, allies included. Example, if you got a level 5 unit that attacks a level 5 enemy, you're going to get 10 experience points per action every time. And then it goes down by 1 as their level is, or your level is slightly higher than them. So from that angle, you're usually getting 10 experience points every time you do something against the enemy. That helps with scaling. But on the other hand, it almost kind of discourages you from grinding a little bit, just because, I don't know about you two, but there's something about just being overpowered and walking over to somebody and just flicking them with your thumb and middle finger and just having them just fly out of your way. Like, you've earned that, truly. But you don't really get to do that. And then when you go into the battles, the story battles, where there's a lot of weight, there's a lot of theatrics, and everything is like on the line, then you're really overpowered, and you almost lose that sort of, I don't know, that you kind of lose a little bit of gusto when you're in this big battle and you're just trouncing over everybody. So I almost wish they would have just had everyone scale or not, and not pick and choose.
So I did a search, and it looks like if it's a human, it doesn't scale, but monsters do scale to you.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, most of the story battles are exclusively human so far, with the exception of Oogie Boogie, but we'll get to him.
Man. Hate it.
I'm going to counter you a little bit, Nomad, or rather agree with one of your caveats. I don't like scaling. I didn't like it in 8. I don't like it here. And here's why. Like, JRPGs at their core, third-person action games, hack and slash, sports games, the challenge is press the buttons good. It's a little reductive, but press buttons good. The challenge with JRPGs is make your spreadsheet numbers better than your opponents, right? If we're being reductive about both, that's what it is. Cue that meme, that Calvin and Hobbes meme, where it's like every video game is either an Excel sheet or I can't remember the other one. But that's part of the fun for me. But moreover, what I always loved as a kid in Pokemon specifically is grinding my guys, training my guys up so that they're just barely stronger than the wild Pokemon. And then I beat the gym leader and I'm okay. And then I get to the next area and suddenly the random battles are much stronger. What that signals to the player where you should go and where you should maybe hold off on. And I don't know, it gives me a sense of wonder. Like I'm wandering to a new area and I'm facing new monsters. And there's this mystique about it, like, oh man, I don't know how they fight. And that's an abstraction. You have to kind of use your imagination for that a little. But that's why I've always liked that. I don't mind grinding. I don't like scaling for that reason. So yeah, I guess I agree with your caveat, Nomad. I wish they wouldn't have done it at all. Or maybe went all in, but I would prefer none at all, personally. Speaking of, Chris, I'm glad that I hope I'm not hogging the mic. You had mentioned that monsters scale. One of the major reasons that I was so frustrated in the beginning of this game is because random battles happen. They scale to you, as we've said, and you'll get thrown in with like 3 goblins and 2 or 3 chocobos. Chocobos are far more vicious in this game than they have any right to be.
They are.
But what makes them truly fantastically difficult for beginners like me is that they can heal. And it's not just they heal themselves and adjacent characters. And here's the thing about Final Fantasy Tactics, the AI is really good. Like, they're not dum-dums. They will, if they need to heal, they will trounce back to their other characters. They'll heal themselves in them. If their other characters, their teammates need to heal, they will go back to them and heal them. Like, the AI is not dumb. And when you're a beginner faced with 2 chocobos and 3 goblins, and the chocobos are just healing more than you can deal damage, you're going to have a bad time. I was having a bad time because, let's not forget, permadeath is a thing in this game. If your guy dies, it spawns a counter, 3, and then it'll go down to 2 after everybody's taken a turn, then 1, then 0, and if one more turn elapses, done, permanently dead. And man, oh man, do I not want that to happen.
Yeah, that's why I said that you need to have that item, somebody with item throw, because you can just throw a Phoenix down at it and remediate it. But yeah, I've this recent playthrough, I had it happen once fighting a boss, and I was pretty mad. I had to start the fight all over a couple of times, and I was not having a great time.
Yeah, I don't think I really truly appreciated the difficulty curve and just how brutal things were in the beginning until I played the game again recently. And you're right, you're constantly trying to chase your chocobo tail feather. Bad pun. Anyway, you're trying to chase your tail and take these chocobos out, and certain random battles can be really difficult if you're not really in tune to the mechanics themselves, or maybe you just don't have the right units set up and you're just having a hard time getting through. But I will say it frustrated me in the beginning, and I could absolutely see how this might actually block some people from progressing through this game. It can and sometimes is that frustrating. But I will say it is very satisfying when eventually you find a way to circumvent those challenges and you find a way to get through. Like, I can't remember which you two mentioned this earlier in the show, but winning a battle is very, very gratifying, and very rarely is it one of those where it's just a mundane thing that you do. Like, you earn a lot of your battles, especially those earlier battles. So you really have to dial in and get through it. But once you do, it is very rewarding. But goddamn, is it tough?
Very tough. Yeah. What adds to some difficulty, especially with human characters, is the Zodiac system. I'm going to say up front, I almost never pay attention to this. I found a beginner's guide, like 10 tips you should know for Final Fantasy Tactics, and I picked my my Zodiac sign based on the advice to make a future battle easier. I'm assuming it's the infamous battle, but I don't actually know. So I picked that one. Largely in-game, I don't pay attention to this. What happens is if your characters have a compatible sign, I think they will do more damage or heal more, and if they don't, less. If they don't have a compatible sign, you might miss more often. So like if you're a mage trying to heal one of your characters and the signs aren't compatible, you will miss more often, which might convince you to switch classes up. I'm going to be honest, fellas, I don't pay attention to this one little bit.
Nope, nor do I. I haven't. I never really thought that far ahead to assign a specific Zodiac sign to my main character based on a future battle. I probably should do that, but I always put my own birthday in there, and he always comes up a Virgo. But I never pay attention to it because the differences in battle, to me, it's like, I wouldn't say they're minuscule. Some of them are noticeable. Like, example, your Ramza could be doing 36 damage pretty consistently, but you come up against an enemy and all of a sudden he's doing 22. And I always thought it just happened to do with Zodiac compatibility, but I never made the time to really look at what signs were on the field, what signs I have, and even remotely remember what compatibility is so I can tailor my strategy to it. And also, too, I'm fairly certain that a unit's gender will also impact that compatibility, too. Like, you're either looking at a chart here, so it's for if you're Aries, right? Your best compatibility is a Libra of the opposite gender. Your worst compatibility is a Libra of the same gender. I would never have known that if I didn't read that just now. So it's really hard to take that into account, and it's almost a non-factor. And while it's kind of an interesting addition to the game, I think it's almost useless. I almost wish they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I thought it was all RNG percentages and stuff. I had no idea that, the Zodiac would play anything into it. Strange that they did that, but, it's kind of very creative. I never heard of anything like that before.
It makes sense within the lore of the game. I get it. And my understanding, like I said, I haven't played much of Matsuno's games before, but I understand that Matsuno likes to do this kind of thing, like these complex battle systems, this crunchy sort of tweak it till you break it kind of deal. I tend to agree with you, Nomad. I think this is a little bit much, especially when it's integrated with the rest of the system. There's a way to do this that like puts it on Front Street and makes it pretty cool. I just think there's so much other stuff going on that's more exciting that like this stuff just fades into the background for me. Also, that is wild that the same sign is best and worse, just depending on whether it's the same or opposite gender. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm not one to go get a horoscope scroll from the gas station these days or anything, but I can't remember gender really playing a role in that, really. But either way, it's a great system for what it is. It just got buried in so much other good stuff.
I'm stuck on horoscope from the gas station. What are you talking about?
Oh my God, maybe I'm that old. Every once in a while, like there was a gas station near my home where they had this little display by the register and they had these little paper scrolls, like maybe half the length of a pencil, right? And they're just horoscope scrolls. And you'd pick out yours and you'd unravel it and it would just have some mundane advice. Your what's going to be happening to you. You're going to have a good day on the 13th. Your lucky number is 3 and your power color is blue. Like, please, somebody listening, go into the Discord and say that I'm not crazy. Like, these exist, I swear.
I remember those, but they were bracelets, not scrolls.
Oh man, someone Google it, check it out. They were really interesting.
Before we talk story, we've got to talk about this music. My goodness, do I love this soundtrack. This soundtrack is fantastic. I was listening to it all today. There is so much to talk about, how it separates itself from Uematsu, how it carves a new interesting identity, how it fooled me into thinking Sakimoto had orchestral experience when he doesn't. I have so much I want to say, but I want to throw it to you two. What do you think of this soundtrack?
For me, the soundtrack was exceptional. Even when I was younger and didn't really have an appreciation for music, what stuck out to me then and still stuck out to me now was this is the most not Final Fantasy soundtrack in a Final Fantasy game, and that is absolutely to its benefit. I love that it really pulls you into this world, and it's not so much... It's really not that chippery kind of upbeat sort of Final Fantasy music that you tend to hear at times. And I also noticed, too, that the standard issue victory fanfare is nowhere to be found in this game, and that was done by design, just to keep the sort of tone and realistic sort of nature they were going for. And while you would think the music in this game wouldn't be all that memorable, a decent amount of the music really is. Some of the battle themes are very exciting and they really pull you into the experience, and they've got a couple different things going on at once. There is a track that I can't think of the track in my head now, but I know it's called Trisection, and it's one of the battle themes that you hear play, and it's I think it like literally has 3 different types of music going on, kind of overlapped on top of itself. Definitely correct me if I'm thinking a little off base here, but I love this music. It has pulled me into this experience more than some of the other JRPG soundtracks that I've experienced, and I never not enjoy hearing any of the music on display. Every single one fits the exact story scene perfectly to elicit the right amount of emotion out of the player and then the characters that are on screen. Like, it's mwah. I love it. It's great.
You know, whenever I'm on a show when the topic of music comes up, I don't know what to say. because music, even though I love it and I hear it, and sometimes I'll catch myself humming, it doesn't really stick to me. But this game has a couple of songs that do stick. The song where the theme that they play when you're equipping your weapons, you're buying new inventory. The overworld theme is always stuck in my head. Whenever there's, for lack of a better word, royalty on screen, the song that plays always sticks in my head. But I love that it's very horn heavy. You hear a lot of horns throughout the music. And like Nomad was saying, it doesn't feel like Final Fantasy, like the previous Final Fantasy games. But somehow to me, it does feel like Final Fantasy. It might just be because this was the second Final Fantasy I played after playing Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo. But yeah, I always have issues with this topic. But the music is pretty good, and it does fit the scenes. Whenever there's an emotional scene, the music playing fits, and whenever there's high stakes stuff happening, the music also fits. It's just hard for me to describe.
Hey, that's all right. That's cool. I think the difference, I'm thinking of Uematsu's compositions. One of the things that Uematsu does really well, and I think it's on the forefront of his mind at all times, is melody and character of an overall composition. Melody, he thinks about the hummability. He thinks about the shape. He thinks about the contour. How does it go up and how does it go down? He thinks about the... when I said shape, I should have said like meter, like how symmetrical is it? He thinks about the character. And when I say character, I mean quirky, studious, sleazy, sexy, innocent, prudent, austere. He thinks about these a lot. And the cool thing about Sakimoto and Iwata's compositions is they're not so predisposed and focused on melody. They create moods and soundscapes with melody, yes, but often through rhythm, often through timbre, often through texture. Not dissimilar to Hamauzu with Final Fantasy XIII, which is another soundtrack that I absolutely love. I think he did 10 too as well. But anyway, that's a different focus, and the result, and also, like, let's be honest, especially, I don't know if the PSP version is different in this regard, but the scoring, which is not a fault of Uematsu, he was working with what he had at the time, especially in the older games, but the scoring is just perfect. They section off the woodwinds to play. They section off the brass. A lot of this game, to me, felt like a musical. I'll put in some music behind this, but you get some like boom ba ba boom boom ba ba boom boom ba ba. It's like we're in Sondheim land. We're in Anything Goes. We're in The Music Man. It feels very musical-esque. And then you also have like the world map theme where you get this beautiful high French horn, just cutting through the texture, but it's not the melody. It's this counterline. But one of the things that, and I apologize, guys, I know I'm going on and on, but one of the things that I found that differentiated them from Uematsu is they really like metric modulation. What does that mean? I already said that they play with rhythm a lot, and they do. They use rhythm in a very percussive way. Metric modulation is when you take a meter. Meter is what the music is in. Is it in 4/4? Is it in 3/4? Things like that. Let's use the example of a compound duple. What that means is there are 2 beats in a measure, and each beat is divided into 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's called 6/8. That's a compound duple. Metric modulation is when you keep 6 beats, 6/8 notes in a measure, but instead of 3 plus 3, you group them 2 plus 2 plus 2. So you still get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but the accent, the emphasis changes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They do that a lot in here. So much. Like in Zalbag's theme, which is a theme that I really, really like. which you're hearing now, obviously. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to go on and on, but there's just I was shocked at how much I love this soundtrack. Like, I'm feeling the same way hearing this for the first time that I felt hearing Final Fantasy VIII for the first time. Like, oh my goodness, this is so good. And the crazy thing is, I don't hear people talk about this OST very much. It's always 7, it's always 8, it's always 9, it's always 6 and 4. Never Tactics. And it's like, why not? This is, if I'm going to choose anybody to compose over Uematsu, it's going to be Sakimoto and Iwata.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it real well there. And actually, before I even get into that, Rick, I always love your passion when it comes to music. You really help me feel a more appreciation to the music that I listen to. So thank you for your insights here. But I agree, too, that the Final Fantasy Tactics soundtrack is definitely one of the more maybe underappreciated or maybe just often too overlooked. And when I think back to when this game originally came out, this was all on the PlayStation 1's internal sound chip. And I'm no expert in tech, but I don't think that thing was super robust in and of itself anyway. So I can only imagine that Sakimoto and Iwata just painstakingly programmed it in the way they did to make sure that there were live strings. You could hear the brass and the percussion so predominantly. I honestly, when I was a kid, thought this was legitimately orchestrated. It sounded that good. And the last thing that I'll mention that I really appreciate about the music, these two, I don't know their music well enough by heart to really pull out their styles, but what I did look into, I feel like Sakimoto more so handled the main themes and the battle music, and those were a lot heavier, layered, orchestral, right? More martial in tone, if that's the right word. Militaristic? We'll go with martial. And where Iwata kind of did more of the darker, more experimental pieces, like the dungeons and the atmospheric tracks in between the different cutscenes and stuff. And I didn't know until recently it was two different composers, but I think their two differing styles really added to this game. And yeah, it is really, really good. And I've started to listen to the soundtrack a lot more than I used to. It's now on my more permanent rotation because it is that good.
I'm glad you brought that up. There are two composers, as we were talking about, both Hitoshi Sakimoto and Masaharu Iwata. What I learned very recently, like recently enough that I couldn't do some more research for this episode, they composed almost entirely separately. They did collaborate on some stuff, but they were largely composing by themselves. And the crazy thing is like, so much of this sounds pretty cohesive. So what I'm going to do is, before I put this out, I'm going to do a little more listening and see if I can't elaborate further on the differences between the two. But if they were truly that separate, man, they've got some chemistry. They work together a ton. I think on Ogre Battle 64, I definitely know Final Fantasy 12. They've done a lot together. They're like they're like half of a dream team or something.
So are they the Ivalice team? Because if I'm not mistaken, 12 takes place way before Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, in the golden age of Ivalice. So they might be the Ivalice team. I don't know if they did anything with Tactics A2 or Tactics A1. I don't even know if those are based in Ivalice. Are they?
So I know the first one takes place through a book that they fall into Final Fantasy, and they go to Ivalice, but I don't know if it's like actually Ivalice or if it's like their version. I don't know. It's weird. But maybe. I don't know. I don't know if they're the composers for that game too.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. They work together a lot. They've done a lot. They're fantastic. This OST is fantastic. I am having a ball looking up and sourcing music and putting in my notes where to put stuff in. And we'll touch on more as we go through. Just as we'll touch on more of all of this stuff as we go through. Okay, wow, that is a beefy precursory discussion. We haven't done one of these in a while, a big beefy one. For this episode, we're going to get as far as we can. Our original plan was to finish Act 1. I don't know that we'll get that far today, but we'll get as far as we can. So if you've played through Act 1, you're golden. That being said, If you're jumping off due to spoilers, go ahead and do so now. For the rest of you, let's learn about the hero Delita and the heretic Ramza, and how they play into the War of the Lions in Final Fantasy Tactics. So, there is an intro movie that helps set the scene and clarify things. I think it's very helpful, and I'd like to read a little bit of what it's saying. It says, "The king on Doria had died from a terminal illness earlier, and the prince who succeeded him was only 2 years old. This meant his guardian would actually reign in his stead as king. The queen's elder brother, Duke Larg, was designated as guardian, but fearing an oppressive reign from the queen, the parliament ousted the potential prince, appointing instead the king's cousin, Prince Goltana, as guardian. Goltana and Larg are both respected generals who proved themselves in the 50 Years' War. Goltana had the support of the powerful nobles, but disenfranchised nobles and knights clearly supported Larg. Black Lion symbolizes Goltana and the white, Larg. This is the beginning of what will later be known as the Lion War." That's clarified here too, because we're first set up with this historian named Eraslam, a historian that deals with the War of the Lions, a, quote, bitter war of succession that rent the land of Ivalice in two. This is where we get the mention of Delita Hyrule. The name cracks me up, Delita. It sounds so dopey, doesn't it?
I always pronounced it Delita. I know that's wrong, but it rolls off my tongue better.
What should be the correct pronunciation?
I don't know. Japanese doesn't have stress syllables like that, like Delita. It probably would be closer to Delita, but they voice it Delita. It sounds so like, I don't know, Delita. That's my boy Delita. Hey Delita, you go down to the store yet? I don't know. It's one of those. But Delita will be an important character coming up. The script of War of the Lions. So we're going to touch on the script differences a little bit throughout. Not a ton, and I'll be perfectly honest, I'm mainly touching on them where other podcasts and YouTube channels have, because I don't have time to compare the whole script to the other script. But this is a mildly modernized version of early modern English, like circa 1500 to 1800. Think Shakespeare, think Cervantes, Don Quixote, think Marlowe, etc. It's a bridge between Middle English, like Chaucer, and today. It's not strictly early modern English. This doesn't read like Shakespeare. It's a modernized version of it. You'll see what I mean. So Delita is a hero of great renown. His heroism is greatly renowned. A story familiar to all who dwell within our land. But what the eye sees is often sometimes a mere fragment of the truth. This is where we also get mention of an unnamed Ramza, because you get to name him, so he's unnamed. The youngest of House Beowulf, a long famed for producing leaders of knights and men. Until recently, his role in the story was unknown until the Durai Papers were released from the church's grasps. The church maintains that he was a heretic, an inciter of unrest, and a disturber of peace. But what is his true story? I love a history versus fact kind of story. We talk all the time. The victors write the history, but it's not just the victors of war, it's the victors of legislation. It's the victors of societal control. It's the victors of small government, like locales, towns, provinces, things like that. And that's what we're dealing with here. And I mean, even further questions. Can we even trust Eraslam? Who knows?
It's funny you say that. I remember, even when I was a kid, thinking that exact same thing. This guy's telling me a story, but I wonder if this is even true. But like you alluded to, the history is written by the victors. So what is truth? I'm getting ahead of myself.
So we've already touched on the cutscene art style. Thanks again, Phil. Won't go into more of that here. Opens with a cutscene, a group of, or at least in War of the Lions. Again, my reference is War of the Lions. We've got Chris here as the PS1 expert who can chime in if he likes to. Group of knights riding chocobos. Becomes clear in the cutscenes who this gentleman is that's leading them. The music is driving. It's exciting. It's intense. Comes up upon a brick building, and inside, Lady Ovelia is praying in this monastery. She's being hurried off by Agrius, my beloved, as well as the Order of the Northern Sky. In the PS1 version, this is so strange. In the PS1 version, this is kept as the Japanese name, Hokuten, which I didn't research this, but if I'm just going off of what knowledge I have, Hoku means north. Ten could be the kanji for heaven, so the northern heavens, northern sky. Very strange that they kept that Japanese and like nothing else, you know?
Yeah, it's a little bit jarring reading regular English and then out of nowhere Hokuten.
There are also a trio of knights that come in. Not really knights, they're a trio of fellas. One of them's a knight. They are hired hands. One of them, their leader, Gafgarian, says, "We are in employ of the order, not of it. Our pay does not cover trite courtesies to the likes of you." This is what I mean when I say the script is really good. They follow up. Agrius chides him. She says, "Gafgarian, you forget yourself, sir." S-E-R, that's just an honorific for a knight. "You are in the presence of the princess." To which he bows and sarcastically says, "Mayhap bowed heads would less offend. You would do well to waste less time on idle pleasantries." This is one of the PS1 versions that I have a compare to. "Mayhap bowed heads would less offend. You would do well to waste time on idle pleasantries." In the PS1 version, he says, "Is this going to be all right, Agrius? This is an urgent issue for all of us." It just falls very flat to me.
Yeah, I didn't really appreciate the redoing of the dialogue in the War of the Lions version until I played it. I played the PlayStation 1 version so much that, "Is this going to be all right, Agrius?" sounded wonderful, sounded riveting to me. I had no idea how flat it really was until they made those improvements.
Chris, I know we were talking before we started. You had mentioned that you didn't like the PS1 script either. Is that right?
No, I said that I didn't mind it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because people complain, say that it's really bad, and I'm like, I understand what's happening, which is enough for me. Apparently.
Well, I'm glad that you bring that up, because this does verge on things like, I don't know, like when I read like Jane Eyre is a great example. That style of English, like that Victorian era, is almost impenetrable to me. There's something about it that just makes my eyes glaze over. I appreciate it. It's a beautifully constructed, but this isn't that, to be clear. But there is I don't want to say this right after. I don't want to accuse the Bronte sisters of being purpley. There are folks that criticize this script for being purpley. Purple prose is prose that is deliberately written to be more pompous, supercilious, pretentious, more ornate than it needs to be. And actually, before you guys came in, I have to reopen some tabs to find this, I found an example of purple prose. Do you guys know who Sean Penn is?
I might have heard of him.
The actor, right?
Did you know he wrote a novel?
Of course he did.
I want to read 2 lines from this novel to illustrate what purple prose is, how it needlessly uses adjectives and big words to absolutely no effect to where it's confusing. Here are 2 sentences from page 125 of the novel. "There is pride to be had where the prejudicial is practiced with precision in the trenchant triage of tactile terminations." Word vomit. Page 142. This is far and away the worst one that I found. "His dream's desert daylight diffusion dictated disturbances in the void of visual detail." This sounds like somebody is making fun of somebody else. This sucks. Like that's purple prose, needlessly ornate, often to a detriment. Like amateur writers do this all the time. I want to take a minute and just laugh at that.
For me, it just sounds like somebody dared him to use as many D's as he could in a sentence.
I know. They gave him a thesaurus, and they're like, "We'll pay you double for every word you pick out of here." I just wanted to take a minute to laugh at that. I'm sorry.
I'd like to think that Sean Penn could have penned that novel better. Yeah, you can edit that out.
Here we go again. I'm not editing that out. That's on you, buddy. Yeah, there are some folks that accuse the script of being purpley. Maybe in 1 or 2 spots. I think it's fine. Anyway, let's get back to the story. A wounded knight staggers in. The enemy, Duke Goltana's men, is upon them. So if Duke Goltana is the enemy, then these folks are under Duke Larg. We set that up in the beginning. He must be mad. Does he mean to start a war? They're there for the princess. This leads you to your first battle where you control Ramza, or however you named him, and the computer controls guest characters, which is good because I got my cheeks clapped and the computer characters had to save me.
Yeah, I remember.
Wow.
Yeah, I need a minute. That was good.
What? I'm being honest.
No, that's probably the best way to describe it, because I still remember the very first time I played this on my own. Granted, I watched my friend Dave play this exact battle, and he did fine, and it was probably like his 9th time playing the beginning, but it's a great tutorial battle, but it's a tutorial battle that doesn't really tell you how to do anything. You're just passively observing all the other units on the field. So my thought originally was, enemy over there, go hit enemy with sword, experience, that's your prize, go do it. But very quickly, the game teaches you that may not be the right course of action, and even though got smacked around a little bit, it was very eye-opening, and it was really good to see early on.
Yeah, here. The game does kind of throw you into the deep end. This was the era of manuals, the glorious, glorious era of manuals. So it may have taught you more in there. Also, speaking of battles, you can get optional in-battle dialogue. There's a lot of in-battle dialogue here. You can get optional in-battle dialogue depending on if you bring story characters. If you beat a battle too quickly, you might not get certain dialogue. We'll do our best to get all this stuff, but we almost certainly will miss some things, especially because I like rolling with my random handpicked squad more than I do story characters, with the exception of Agrias. Anywho's, after this battle, we get a cutscene. Inside, the man on the chocobo, Delita is taking the princess. She's struggling a little bit, and to get her to cooperate, to stop squirming, he socks her right in the stomach. Punches her in the breadbasket, she gets knocked out. He says, "Forgive me," and he takes her away. Ramza, as he's fleeing off into the forest, Delita, recognizes Delita. He starts to question. He's like, I can't believe he's alive. I can't believe he's under Duke Goltana's banner. What is going on? Now, folks, we have to mention this. This is one of the most famous lines in the game. I think the PSP version is better. He says, Delita does, to the princess,
"You've quite a mouth on you, princess." "Forgive me. 'Tis your birth and faith that wrong you, not I."
I think it's the better line. Chris, what does the PS1 version say?
Didn't you open the episode with it?
Yes, don't blame us. Blame yourself or God.
I kind of like that one. I kind of like that one more.
It's so punchy. It's just, it punches you right in the face. That's such a badass thing to say. Blame yourself or God. That's what I'm going to say from now on whenever my coworkers don't like something that I
Perfect.
do. Blame yourself or God. But that leads us into Chapter 1, the Meager. So Chapter 1, this takes place roughly 1 year after the 50 Years' War in Garland. Chapter 1 is largely going to be a flashback. What we just saw is the present. This Chapter 1 is a flashback dealing with Ramza and Delita's past, and Delita's, let's say, awakening, radicalization. You can tell this is a flashback because, like all youthful men, Ramza has a mullet or a rat tail.
It's a battle one.
I thought that would get more laughs. You guys are killing me.
Let's try that again.
Yeah, roll it back.
Rick, oh my God, I can't with you right now.
All right. Oh, Mr. Pun over here. Okay. Ramza, Delita, and a group of other soldiers are all together in here. They are knights in training. Ivalice is in apparent chaos. Brigands are everywhere, not the least of which being the Corpse Brigade. We're going to learn more about them. The Order of the Northern Sky, although numbering too few according to Delita, is going to take care of them. We, Knights in Training, are backing them up. Delita suspects that Duke Larg and the Marquis Elmdor de Limberry are coming. Elmdor is his name. De Limberry, he's from Limberry. Marquis is a title. This is where you select your party members. They're all just a generic group of squires and chemists. By the way, we didn't mention the bravery and faith systems.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Do either of you, Chris, Nomad, want to talk on the bravery faith system?
I have no idea how it works.
All right, Nomad, you want to take the reins?
No worries. So, with all the other stats that you have going on with your units, their zodiac sign, their jobs, all that other stuff, they are also assigned a bravery, and faith statistic. It's numerical. For your bravery, your unit's bravery, the higher their bravery numerically, the more powerful that they are in combat, the more damage they're going to deal. It's a numerical representation of quite literally how brave they are and how much they'll run into danger, and they're more reliable as a fighting unit. Your faith is a representation of your character's faith, their belief in God, their belief in, dare I say, maybe the supernatural, a higher power, if you will. The higher a character's faith stat, the more powerful their magic will be. But it's not just how powerful the magic is that they use against the enemy. The magic used against them could be more harmful if it's enemy magic against them, or it could be more helpful if they're being healed by a fellow unit. Now, these particular levels can rise and fall as you go throughout battles. There's certain abilities that can make your faith go up or go down, and there's interesting effects when either of them go two different ways. For example, if your unit's bravery goes too low, I don't remember the actual number, I think it's either less than 20 or less than 10, your unit will literally turn into a chicken because they are too afraid to keep engaging in battle. You will lose control of that unit, and they will do everything they can to flee the battle, and they will become useless until their bravery is restored. When it comes to faith, if a character's faith goes too high, you actually run the risk of that unit leaving your party because now they answer to a higher calling. They're fully in belief of God or a higher power, and they will see that they basically join the church and they're gone. So it's an interesting system, and there's some interesting ways to kind of manipulate that number. And I assume those were put into the game to try to prevent like grinding in some capacity. Like you can't make a magic user too powerful or they'll leave you. I mean, you could potentially make someone very, very high and brave, but there's enemies out there that can kind of exploit that too. So it's an interesting sort of mechanic to use.
Yeah, it's a neat system. Well, you get to roll your characters for bravery and faith here in a second. Right now, we get into the world map for the first time with this terrific music. We're going from the city of Garland to Egro's castle, unless we want to stop by the tavern or the shops to recruit new soldiers. Excuse me. Which you're going to want to do. The pro strat is to kind of keep your numbers low. I'm rolling, including Ramza, with 7, and that's like too many. Or maybe 6, I can't remember. 7 including Ramza and Agrius. That's like bordering on too many. You want to keep it low.
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing too. And a fun little fact too that I just want to share. I always love the beginning of the game when you do recruit these new soldiers. Like, you have to get enough funds to get as many as you want. I think 1,500 gil for a male soldier, 14 for a female. So you might have to do a random battle or two, depending on how many soldiers you want to recruit. But I always enjoyed kind of rolling for the ones that I really wanted because their stats are kind of randomized when you hire them. But my favorite part is you get to name them. And back when I was a kid, I always named my new recruits just my best friend's name. Chris, Brian, Joey, or whomever. And I don't know, it's kind of dumb thinking about it now, but I really liked adding that kind of a touch to the game. Like, it was my posse, it was my friends, it was nice.
Did you do anything like that, Chris?
I did. I did. For some reason, I've always liked to have just female party members, so I would get rid of all of the male members and just have a full party of female characters.
Yeah, I see.
So I would just have a bunch of badass chicks just stabbing people in the face, and that was so cool. Of course, I would like put like all of the names that I could come up with for their names, because you can name them. So why not? Why would you have Millicent when you can have Jennifer?
I forgot to name them, but you can't rename them, so I'm just rolling with stock Joseph and Ava, people like that. we're already in a flashback. Exhibit shows up and says, "Yo, dog, I heard you like flashbacks." So now we're in another flashback. We get to see Ramza's dad, Barbaneth Beowulf, on his deathbed. He is a distinguished knight of the head of House Beowulf, Ramza's dad. His sons, Barbaneth's sons, Lord Dicedarg, just incredible name, and Knight Devout Zalbag, as well as his daughter Alma. They're all beside him on his deathbed. The 50 Years' War is basically ending with him. Everything's in a good place. He wants it to end. He's telling him, "Don't cry. Do you want my last memories of you to be your tears? I leave it in your faithful hands. You're going to be great." They all call him Lord Father, which is the only name I would accept as a parent personally. And I hope you two do too.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to force my dogs to start calling me Lord Father.
I don't acknowledge my children unless they call me that title, but anyway.
Lord Father, may you please take me for a walk?
Nomad's getting close to a Beam Dad situation. Ramza notably is late, and the other sons get pretty pissed about it, but he does barge in. I mean, he had to hoof it from, where is he? Garland. He had to hoof it from there, so of course he's late. He barges in. There seems to be tension between them because Ramza is not, quote, of the mother's womb. He is half-brothers to Dicedarg and Zalbag, but he is Barbaneth's son. He seems to be very well liked by Barbaneth. In fact, one of the last things he says is, "Show your brothers how to be knights." This is establishing Ramza as a special boy who is fated to do good things. Particularly with his low-born friend, Delita. Barbaneth says that he's leaving Delita with him. He kind of gets absorbed into, kind of adjacent to House Beowulf. And this is going to play a huge part in the story. Ramza's relationship with his nobility, his relationship with his low-born friend Delita, and Delita's relationship with his lot in life. This is crucial to the rest of this story. And I don't know about you guys, but I love this kind of thing. I love class struggles and things like that.
Yeah, likewise. And of all the scenes that are going to happen in this game, even though this is one of the more earlier ones, this is one of my absolute favorites because not only does it really do a good job of establishing the character, your main character, and those around him, it helps build the world and even moves the plot forward all at the same time. It's really well written, and as a player, you take away a lot from this scene. Now, I remember feeling a lot more endeared to Ramza because he is that special boy, as you so elegantly put it, that he's not quite of the same blood as his brothers. He's a little different. But then what is this relationship with Delita? He's lowborn, sure. That's certainly going to be important. But what was it that his father saw in this boy that made him a good companion for Ramza? You leave with a lot of questions, but you're also pretty well established in who the players are, at least in that immediate room, and who's going to be driving the plot forward a little bit. It's just a really well done scene and has a lot of emotion too. So one of my favorites.
A battle with the Corpse Brigade, the Mandalia Plain, dope music. We're rescuing their hostage Argath. I was originally, when I started, referencing a guide that referred to Argath as the Bastard, capital T, capital B, the entire way, and cracked me up, but on retrospect, I get it. Argath is a bastard, but he's going to be a main character. We save him. The Marquis Elmdor de Limberry, per Argath, has been captured. He is part of the Marquis's, house squad. A Marquis, by the way, is a nobleman that ranks above a count and below a duke. Below Duke Larg, Duke Oltana, but above the Count from Sesame Street. Argath is a member of the Marquis's house, and he begs us to help rescue him. Interestingly, this is a little foreshadowing. As soon as he hears that Ramza is a Beowulf, a nobleman, he perks right up. He's like, "Oh, what good luck." We go back, we report to Dicedarg, because, we're Delita and Ramza are dude, we can't do anything together. We're all knights in training. Don't act like you're higher than us. You're in training too. We're all 16. Let's go back to Dicedarg. He'll know what to do. Argath is begging him. "I beg of you, Lord Beowulf, lend me 100 men that I might hunt the whore sons down." This game is elite at insults. hunt the Whore Sons down. I love it.
Yeah, this one always made me smile.
Dystarg does not appreciate this misplaced fervor, and he puts him in his place. Homie isn't even a knight yet. And by the by, he's already sending Zalbag, sending a squad in with Zalbag. And furthermore, Argath is butting into affairs of their kingdom. He's not even a part of this. So he shuts him down real quick, and he's tail between his legs, he sits down. He tells Ramza and Delita that we are to stay here and defend the castle walls while they go save the Marquis. No problem. We're on guard duty. We get a scene outside where we meet Tietra, Delita's sister. Alma's there. Zalbag is there as well. They're all talking outside. There's a little bit of a scene with Argath kind of detailing his family's history of his grandfather turning traitor after being captured, which is why Argath is so obsessed with status in this game. Argath will continually cite status and nobility versus lowborn as being sort of a reason deter in life. That is the most important thing to him. He's going to get real classist real quick as we go through here. The reunion's cut short here. The Corpse Brigade sent out a ransom for the Marquis. And this is where the perspective seeds are planted. They say the Corpse Brigade are anarchists, to be sure, bent on bringing down the aristocracy, but they fancy themselves righteous and prey only on the nobility and those in our employ. Would such as they truly kidnap the Marquis for want of coin? And this is where Zalbag says, I'm tied up here, I can't leave, but, I could tell you where he's at, and guarding a castle's walls grows painfully dull, wouldn't you agree? So interesting, right? Zalbag is kind of trying to coax us out of Dystarg's orders. Did you guys catch that on the first time around? I admit, I did not.
Yeah, to me, that just felt like an older brother move. Like, here's a beer, go drink it. I'll watch out for mom and dad. It just felt like an older brother move, letting Ramza know to go make your name by saving this important person.
Yeah, that's exactly how I looked at it.
Yeah, I could see that. Whenever I do this show now, I try to take notes by watching a Let's Play the second time around or cutscenes. That's when I caught it. Knowing what happens, that's when I caught this.
Yeah, it's a really good scene too. We kind of know who the brothers are in the previous scene where Ramza's father passes away, but now you get to see a little bit more. And I really started to endear myself to Zalbag after this. It was like having Big Brother in our corner.
Totally. You get into a random battle here in the Siege Weald. This is where the goblins and chocobos sent me into a fury of 1,000 suns, sending many a curse word into our group chat. But then we arrive at Dorter Slums. You see a knight in a white cape interrogating a knight in green at sword point. He's looking for the Marquis, who he hears is in the Sandrat's Siege. He's also looking for someone named Gustav, Claire Obscure mentioned. Delita recognizes this man. It's Wiegraf, the former commander of the Dead Men during the war. The Dead Men, of course, turned into the Corpse Brigade. He is their commander. We talked about the bespoke animations before. There is one here of Gustav, of Wiegraf reaching out and Gustav slapping his arm away, and he tries to run, but he falls. Wiegraf points his sword at him. These are terrific. We've talked about that plenty. We get into a little fight here. I think this is the first time we fight archers and black mages. Definitely archers, but I think black mages too.
Yeah, this was an interesting fight. It was one of my favorites. It was certainly difficult, and the archers made it very difficult because it's the first time you're up against not just that type of an enemy that can shoot arrows at you, but now you get to see how verticality really plays a role in battles. And the higher up an archer is, the more range they're going to be able to have with their arrows. And it's one of those, you have to be able to take them out quickly, but now you have black mages that you haven't really fought before that don't really have to rely on line of sight to be able to attack with their magic. So it's interesting because the game gives you two different new challenges in the same battle and expects you to circumvent them. I was never able to beat this battle the very first time, anytime I played it when I was younger. I always had to find a different strategy or find a unique way to do it, but this is the battle that really showed me what this game's battle system really is, and I love it.
This is a huge skill check, and it's fairly early on in the game. Just it's been like maybe 30, 40 minutes since the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And the verticality in this level is crazy. And for some reason, both Delita and you said Argath?
Yeah.
In PlayStation, it's Algus. So they both go for the archers and they immediately get taken out. And
every
placement, the placement for your characters is not optimal. So getting the specific unit that has the most movement to be able to get to the archer, especially the one at the top, as quickly as possible, is critical. And it is such. It's gonna be, this fight is definitely gonna turn into a trial by error kind of fight.
Absolutely, yeah. This is, everybody talks about this fight being the first. Like, you got to get good. Afterwards, we're interrogating one of the dudes we just fought, Argath in particular. Argath gets aggressive at all times, violent. We have to kind of rein him in. As much of a bastard as he is, he has a terrific interrogation line here. He says to the guy we're interrogating, "You will die. You will be hunted down to the last and slaughtered like the swine you are, for such is Brigandy's reward. But you, pig, are a lucky one. Tell us what we wish to know, and you and you may yet keep your bacon." So where is Wiegraf? So good. So good. This is why this is why I like the War of the Lions script so much more. Like the PS1 version is punchier and it's more succinct, but these flourishes, when they hit, they hit. What's interesting here, this is where the class struggle starts to really come into play. This guy here, he says that we're interrogating, he says, "I am no rogue. You nobles are all the same. You think every man born outside a castle's walls less than human. We fought for this kingdom at peril of our very lives, yet the moment the war was ended, you turned us out into the streets." Argath, of course, doesn't buy this. He basically calls him a maggot, I think. At some point he says, "What do maggots know of honor?" But the main thing to take away from here is that the kidnapping was not Wiegraf's plan. Wiegraf did not want to kidnap the Marquis. It was Gustav Margif, member of the Corpse Brigade. By the way, Zalbag had mentioned to us outside previously that one of his planted men, he planted a spy, a mole, in the Corpse Brigade, and this fella had not come back. That's what he kind of goaded us into checking out. It seems like Gustav is this member. He's a renegade. He wanted to kidnap the Marquis. Wiegraf did not want to go about this. This guy says, "No, we're not like Gustav. We fight to end the aristocracy, not to become it." So now that we know all this, it's off to the Sand Rats' siege. I think we're going to cap it here for today. Didn't get quite as far as originally intended, but I think it's fine. A lot of this game is spent in menus, so the playtime is, I don't want to say bloated, but it's padded with non-story stuff. So I think we'll be okay moving forward. But we're going to pick up here next time with a dual party setup at the Sand Rats' siege to save the Marquis and to deal with Wiegraf. Before we check out for the day, I got to thank both of you two, Chris and Nomad, for joining me on what is going to be a fantastic series. A long series, a fantastic series all the same. Before we check out, I wanted to let the two of you talk about your shows a little bit. So whomever of you would like to go first and tell the listeners where they could find you and what you're up to, by all means.
Sure thing. So my show is called The Retro Wildlands, as Rick said at the top. I really love the format that the show's turned into over time. For those that are uninitiated, I am going back and I'm playing a lot of older retro games that I missed out on when I was a kid because, I don't know, I might have spent hundreds of hours playing Final Fantasy Tactics and not gotten to some of the other older games out there. And I invite you to listen to the show. It's awesome because I'm going back and experiencing those games mostly for the first time. But during the show, I try to bring you along, listener, into the experience by putting in some music and sound from the game itself, and to try to get you to maybe relive a little bit of your nostalgia days by jumping into a game with me, or maybe you want to check out a game for the first time before you actually play it, see what it's all about. My show definitely does that for the listener as well, and it's a very good time, and I hope you stop by. We just launched a brand new website, theretrowildlands.com, where we have over 70 episodes. I'm starting to get into a little bit of blog posting, mini written reviews on some games that maybe I'm not going to cover on the podcast, but I really want to share my thoughts on. So you can go to our website, theretrowildlands.com, to check out some of those. And the show itself is on all the major pod platforms, Spotify, Podchaser, iTunes, you name it, we're out there. Search the Retro Wildlands. I would love to have you along on our expedition and meet some cool people. And Rick, thank you again for having me on the show. It's been fantastic. It's always fun hanging out. And Chris, pleasure to meet you, man.
Same here, man. It's been great. I feel like this series is gonna make us some new friends.
Indeed.
So, my name is Chris. I am the main host of A Novel Console, a podcast that I do or used to do with my wife, where we talk about books, games, and food. All of the episodes are still up on our feed, so if you go anywhere and look up Novel Console, you're going to find us. We are coming back at some point before the year is over.
Oh, good.
I am not living with my wife. She is living in Georgia and I'm in Florida, but I have to go back to Georgia to set up the equipment so she could record with me remotely. When that's done, episodes are going to come back because she's like, we got to do it. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do it. Other than that, I am the owner of Consoles and Stuff. Basically, I buy video games and I sell them starting at $1 on Encore, which is a video game and collectibles buying platform. It's all auction based. I start everything at $1, so you could get grails for super cheap. So if you have any games or stuff that you're looking to sell, I pay around 80% of price charting. So if you want to shoot me an email at console and stuff without the S, console singular and stuff. I'm so confused. Okay, console singular and stuff at gmail.com. Tell me what you got and we'll work out some sort of deal. I've already bought from a bunch of our friends like Aaron from Superpod, Thrak from the 3DO Experience, and a whole other bunch of awesome people. So anything you got, let me know. I'm willing to buy it. What other podcaster offers to give you money for your stuff?
Yeah, usually we're the ones raking in the big bucks.
Right?
You guys are raking in big bucks?
Yeah, cue the meme. You guys are getting paid. If I listen, my therapist tells me positive manifestations. So if talking about being paid for podcasting isn't a positive manifestation, I don't know what is, buddy. Thank you both. I really appreciate you for doing this with me, for bringing your love for this game, the enthusiasm for this game that meant a lot to you as young folks into today. I'm looking forward to getting through the rest of this. Really terrific. We'll see everybody. We've got a couple more episodes of this to go. If you want to check out the show, Pixel Project Radio on socials, you can do so mainly on Blue Sky and Instagram. You can also join our Discord server. It is free. It's a great way to support the show. Sharing the show on social media is another great way to support the show. And if you want to hit the trifecta, you can give a rating or a review wherever you listen. Spotify, iTunes, Podcast Addict, etc. If you really want to go the extra mile, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. Last month we did Chrono Cross. This month, at this time of recording, since we're recording in advance, is TBD. We did Stellar Blade. We did Tomba 2 at one point. Lots of cool stuff on there. Check that out if you're so inclined. So again, Nomad, Chris, Nomad, thank you very much. Listeners, thank you for sticking around to listen. If you're a new listener, I hope you love the show today, and I hope you'll stick around. If you're a returning listener, same goes for you. See ya in episode 2. We're going to sign off for now. Peace out.